Meeting your spirit guides can be one of the most transformative and magical moments of your life. Living life through their guidance can be one of the most amazing experiences a spirit can have on this earthly existence. Spirit guides are waiting for you. Oftentimes we think that spirit guides are only there for people who are spiritual or sensitive enough to hear them. But the truth is that we all have spirit guides who are right by us all the time. Whether we choose to connect with them, that's a whole other story. Unfortunately, many people wait until something very tragic and severe happens in their life to connect with their spirit guides. Don't let that be you. Make sure that you take some time to actually find a connection with your spirit guides. Chances are that you actually have met your spirit guides. See, people who are generally more open-minded and have an open heart will tend to run into their spirit guides. They'll also have a sense of joy and well-being about them, as if an angel is sitting on their shoulder, literally. Now, children tend to actually meet their spirit guides a lot more often than adults do. So, can you recall an experience back in your life when you were young? Maybe through a dream, or maybe when you were playing, where you felt a presence, a light-hearted, beautiful presence around you. Or maybe you saw a relative who wasn't there, maybe a dead relative. But instead of it being a dark experience, it was actually a very light, healing experience. See, spirit guides are all around us. And what people don't realize is that there are more spirit guides than ones. And what's really funny to see is that how us humans have this sort of ego-driven idea of what guides are. We think that guides are just angels and these beings in human form. But even though we tend to humanize spirit guides, they actually come in many forms. Obviously, they are beings in the ether. They do not have a physical form like we do, even though we would like them to. Oftentimes, we see them in a physical form, for it is a way for our eyes to perceive the spirit, the energy of the spirit in an earthly material way. So there are different forms of spirit guides. One of them are animals. Animal spirit guides are really, really powerful. And if you're going to start with any kind of guides, it actually is quite wonderful to connect to your animal spirit guides. To do this, you can watch my video on spirit guide meditations, where I walk you through the process of actually meeting your animal spirit guide. Now, it's very important to do this process until you're fully relaxed. Oftentimes, when we start a process like this that tends to really take us away from the everyday logic and rationale that we try to squeeze ourselves into, we must really begin to relax and allow our creative mind to pull forth. This is done by accessing our unconscious more. The unconscious is one of those small bridges that connects us to the ether world, the soul world, to the spirit world. It also holds a lot of information about our past, whether it is our past in this current life or past lives. So it's important to do simple meditation or breathing exercises to allow yourself to connect with your guides. Animal guides are quite powerful because they are simply there in pure spirit. They are the most raw, the most honest, and the most simple. Sometimes it can get complicated when we try to connect with spirit guides from the middle world, which is human spirit guides, which could be dead relatives or human beings from history that lived, let's say, in the past as certain historical figures. Because what happens is, as humans, we are filled with many biases and much mental conditioning, and this can often get in the way of receiving a message, especially from spirit guides. They might have had an experience on this physical earth. When I first moved to the United States as a teenage immigrant, I remember the first few weeks sharing a small apartment. It was my family and this other Albanian family, 8 people in a tiny 1-bedroom in New Jersey. And I remember the presence of this man by me as I would sit and I would learn English. I didn't speak English at the time, but I was very focused in learning how to speak English because nobody else in my family did, and they kind of looked at me to help them translate. And so every time I sat at the desk looking out into this beautifully paved and lush street, I remember this man would sit by me, and he had a very long face and he was very calm, and he'd put his hand on my shoulder, and it was just very, very gentle. So whenever I'd feel any kind of anxiety about this new life, this poor, fresh off the boat immigrants coming from winning the immigration lottery, there was this presence of this man, and he was very wise, and he revealed to me certain things about American culture, American history. Now, I had met spirit guides in my younger age, and I had had constant communication with them. And so I'd been sort of used to having these presences in my life, so it wasn't a very scary or frightening or strange experience. The more you relax to this experience, the more you will find yourself being at ease to your spirit guides being there. For their spirit can guide you at different times of your life. At different times in your life, you will have different spirit guides. So I then started school within a few weeks of coming to America, and I was very curious to who this man was with this little beard and this very long face, very calm, and he was obviously an American. And as I started learning about American history, at the moment that I saw a photo of Abraham Lincoln, I grew up in Albania. We didn't know who Abraham Lincoln was. We were raised in communism with everything against the West. So I didn't know who this man was. But the moment I saw his photo, I said, oh, I know him. I've hung out with him. And I remember thinking this, and I remember just feeling like such a weirdo for a second, because this was a man who was alive at a different time frame. And I realized that was the spirit of Abraham Lincoln there, guiding me in this process of integrating into this new culture. So this is a simple example of how once you become relaxed, once you open yourself up to the presence of your own being in the ether world, which you are in this other world, you have a part of your higher consciousness existing in this higher world. As you do and you allow yourself to connect with this part of you, you will feel the presence of different spirits coming. There will be different spirits at different times. And so once you've accessed your animal spirits, then you can begin accessing more human, so to speak, more human form spirits. And then once you have done this, then you can begin to connect with the angelic spirits. The angelic spirits are truly miraculous beings who have lived at the highest vibration possible through their all-soul lives. Now, some of these beings have actually transcended. They've started from, let's say, a human experience, and they transcended to an angelic experience. But some spirit beings are actually souls that have only existed at a much higher vibration, which is why sometimes it takes a few extra steps to begin hanging out with them, so to speak, to begin receiving their guidance. And spirit guides are you. Yes, you. You might be visited at any point during this process of meeting your spirit guides. You have probably been visited by your own transcendent spirit. See, oftentimes, because we see the world in this physical three-dimensional reality as linear, we think, well, I was born in this time frame, and by the time that I die, this much time has passed. But once we transcend into higher dimensions, time is non-linear. All time is existing at all moments, and all history and all existence is existing in all parallel realities. All time and space is existing all at once. That is the universe unfolding. This kind of concept might be mind-blowing for some, and some will understand this completely. But whether you understand it or not, what it means is that while you are living in this physical experience, your soul is actually transcended as well. And it is living in higher vibration as well. It is living in a completely new galaxy and a cosmic universe. And so the more that you make connection with your spirit guides at all levels, the more you'll come into contact with your own elevated spirit, with your own transcendent spirit. And what's amazing about this is that when your own spirit visits you, when your own transcendent spirit visits you, there's a sense of humor in this connection that might be lacking when you connect with other spirits. With other spirits, there's almost a sense of wisdom and calmness and almost a bit of seriousness. But when your own spirit guide, when you start having these fun connections, almost comical connections with this higher spirit, with this playful spirit, that is your own spirit making contact with you. And what's wonderful about that is that your own spirit is always there. And it's the same spirit that has visited you from a young age. And as you start to become aware of it, well, you'll notice that your life will actually become more fun because your spirit understands what you are going through. But because it is not living in a lower vibration, because it is living in a higher vibration, it sort of understands a little bit of your petty struggles, and it kind of ribs you a little bit. It plays with you a little bit. So that is your own spirit connecting with you. And this is one of those things that's not talked about a lot, especially because a lot of times we focus in angelic beings, or beings that, though they are quite wonderful, they sort of have a connection with so many different other beings, which is quite wonderful to know that we all share spirit guides. But your own spirit is, though it might appear in as a presence in the spirit of other humans, it is first and foremost has the strongest connection with you. And because of that, it is like hanging out with your best friend, your bestest of friends. So if you like to connect with your spirit beings, feel free to check out my meditation on how you can connect with spirit beings, whether it is animal spirits or human beings, angelic beings, or your own elevated and transcended spirit. But if you're feeling a bit impatient and would like to start connecting with your spirit guides now, well, I recommend that one of the first things that you do is start to look for things that you love around you. Start to move your attention to things that you love, people that you love, circumstances that you love. And as you do, begin to transfer this love into everything else around you. Instead of shifting everything between what you love, you don't love, and I hate this and I hate that, take that love for the things that you love and transfer it into everything else in your life. What this does, this eliminates a lot of that judgment that we carry. This eliminates that separation that we create in the physical world. When you start to eliminate the separation and start to seeing the oneness in everything, that as you are one with everything else, then that love extends, you begin to ascend into a higher consciousness. And as you do, you start to enter more and more and more the ether world. And what is the ether world? Well, simply understood, the ether world is the world that transcends our thoughts, that transcends our emotions, that transcends our physical body. It is the world of the spirits. And the more we elevate ourselves, and breath is a wonderful way to do this, because in all ancient cultures, breath was equated with spirit. So spirit entered through breath, and spirit left through breath, which is why when someone dies, we say when they take the last breath, well, the spirit has left them, right? It isn't when their brain stops or where their heart stops beating. It's literally when they take that last breath. So breath is a wonderful way to connect with that higher ethereal world, with the higher consciousness. As you do, before you go to bed, set an intention to connect with your spirit guide. And as you go through the day, and the more elevated and lighthearted you keep your vibration, the more you notice that spirit guides will make contact with you. For spirit guides do not force themselves on anyone. See, unlike us as humans who feel the sort of pull to want to, give advice to others or say, hey, I want to help you. Spirit guides, they're simply there. They do not impose themselves. It is when you open up your heart that they show up. They like willingness. They respond to willingness. When we're not willing by holding on to anger and resentment and frustration, well, the spirit guides, they're a bit smarter than us, so they just keep their distance. They know they simply get to be there for those who are ready. And the best way to get yourself ready is to raise your vibration. And the best way to raise your vibration is to begin lifting up your heart, your emotions, your thoughts from those of fear, anger, frustration, and victim mentality to a higher level of kindness, of joy, of givingness, of playfulness. And that is when the spirits smell us, sense us, see the light go up and see us light up a space, and right there they come. And anything we want from them, they are willing to give it to us. Any question that we have, they're willing to lead us. But again, they never impose themselves. They allow us to meet them where they're at.